to another episode of The Wormhole. Today, it's all about astronomy and you. It's all about popular astronomy. And I have a very exciting guest on the show with us today. He's our mystery guest. I wonder who our guest is today.
Hi, Shireen.
None other than Mike Simmons. And what a pleasure it is to have Mike on the show with us today. Mike Simmons has been an amateur astronomer for 40 years, and he loves sharing the sky with others. That's why I said it's all about popular astronomy and you. In 1976, he joined the staff of the renowned Griffith Observatory, where he operated the 12-inch telescope for the public and described the wonders of astronomy to tens of thousands of visitors. Mike's outreach efforts in astronomy broadened in 1999 when he traveled to Iran for the total solar eclipse. In Iran, he found an enthusiastic astronomy community lacking the resources easily available in other developed countries. In 2006, Mike traveled to the Kurdistan region in northern Iraq. So seeing astronomy as a universal interest that transcends cultural boundaries, Mike founded Astronomers Without Borders in 2006 to unite astronomy and space enthusiasts around the world through these common interests. During the International Year of Astronomy in 2009, Mike led the effort to organize the cornerstone project, 100 Hours of Astronomy, in more than 100 countries. This was the largest outreach effort of the year. Mike Simmons, he actually has an asteroid named after him. So Minor Planet Simmons 22294 is an asteroid that was named in his honor in 2003, in part for his varied outreach activities in astronomy. In 2005, Mike was presented with the Clifford W. Holmes Award for a major contribution to popularizing astronomy. In 2009, Mike received the prestigious G. Bruce Blair Award from the Western Amateur Astronomers for outstanding contributions to amateur astronomy. Mike was also awarded the prestigious 2014 Gabriel and Camille Flammarion Prize for the Société Astronomique de France for setting worldwide example that astronomy does transcend political and cultural borders. Welcome once again, Mike, to the Wormhole. The Wormhole allows me to connect with academics and scholars across space and time. So I am located in Trinidad, and Mike, let us know where you are in the world right now.
Well, I after that introduction, I am embarrassed in California, Southern California in the U.S.
Okay, so I'm going to get started with the question that's been on my mind. How did you become interested in astronomy?
Yeah, I'm asked that a lot. And the problem with answering that question for me is I don't remember when I started getting interested in astronomy. I was always fascinated as soon as I became aware of the stars and the planets. I remember in grade school doing little projects on them. I remember Sputnik in 1957, and I was fascinated by the beginning of the space age then. So, and I lived in a suburb of Los Angeles, and it was really, really dark there. So it was easy to see the stars. But how and exactly when, I don't know. Maybe I was just born with it.
Okay, you have a wonderful way to look at it because you can't remember how far back. But as you said, clearly it goes back to your childhood and days. Now, sometimes I myself meet a lot of children who love astronomy, but astronomy is infamous for, especially in the Caribbean region, you can't get a job with it. What would you advise children who are fascinated with astronomy and don't know if they can or they should pursue a career in astronomy?
Well, as you point out, pursuing a career in astronomy is not easy. And even those with PhDs have trouble finding the position that they want. I would encourage kids to get involved in astronomy, amateur astronomy, just enjoy it. And one of the things is that people think it's all about looking at the planets and all of these things. It's not. It's physics and math, and it's not for everyone. So I would say that if you enjoy it, then do that. Enjoy it. I've met a lot of people who look through telescopes, like that one you mentioned at Griffith Observatory, and that started them on a career in science. Not astronomy, but something. So it's a great thing to get into. And don't worry about the future.
You heard it right here. Don't give up on that passion. And as a matter of fact, Mike is such a mentor and inspiring for anyone as to the levels you can achieve by simply engaging in your passion for astronomy. So Mike, you mentioned the Griffith Observatory. So I want to ask you a little bit about it because tell us about your time there.
It is. People think that it may be a research observatory. It is not. The telescope is fantastic. Great public outreach observatory, but it's in the Hollywood Hills. You look directly down into Hollywood from there. The lights are magnificent to look at, but it's not dark. But the museum, the telescope, the solar telescope, it's all there for the public to learn about astronomy and associated scientists, and it's a fantastic place to visit. That telescope has been looked through by more people than any other telescope in the world. It's been there now for almost 90 years.
Wow, that's phenomenal. That's really quite something because, everyone knows the name Griffith Observatory, even all the way here in the Caribbean, but we don't realize the spectacular nature of it. How do you see the relationship between amateur astronomers and professional astronomers and how they can work together to enrich each other? How do you see that?
Yeah, this is interesting because when I was younger, professional astronomers wanted nothing to do with the amateur astronomers. It was completely different, but that's changed. A lot of people who go through and get master's degrees, PhDs in astronomy decide that they love sharing it with the public so much they go into public outreach or education. It's not unusual. And the professional astronomers have changed a bit to be more like amateur astronomers, a lot of them. But also amateur astronomers are a huge resource. Aside from being this enormous community of people around the world who share the science and passion with the public, they also help with the scientific research in citizen science, either online, the advanced ones making observations. We can do things now with amateur facilities that couldn't be done 50 years ago with professional ones. So there is a lot more connection now. It's really blurred the line between the two.
That's fascinating because as you've made I think your lifelong career with your passion and love for astronomy, that even that you can make contributions scientifically, even if you decide not to be a professional astronomer. I think few fields allow that kind of being able to contribute in that manner. So for anyone listening out there, and I know nothing excites the senses like astronomy does, stay with it. Stay with it. You might get, well, actually, I have to now move to the, that you have an asteroid name after you. Tell us about that, Mike. How did that happen and how does it feel? That is just so amazing.
Well, it's kind of odd to think that there's this thing going around out there that's got my name on it. It's just a little rock in the main belt. And, you know, this really is a case of was helping with a project at Palomar Observatory that a really good friend of mine, Jean Mueller, was doing. And the volunteers who were working on that, she would discover asteroids. She ran the Palomar Sky Survey. She didn't have any herself, so she asked Carolyn Shoemaker, that were available to name for people, to name them. So, you know, but in those circles with professionals, especially people in planetary science or something, yeah, everybody's got an asteroid. It's not that unusual, but for the general population, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to have a planet named after you, even a tiny little one.
Well, I beg to differ because I think it's really exciting.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
I was excited, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I think now I shall include this in my classes when I teach on astronomy. Now, one of the things when I read your introduction, I mentioned that you are the founder for Astronomers Without Borders. What motivated you to create something like Astronomers Without Borders, and what is it that the mission is?
You mentioned it there. You said, my trip to Iran and to Iraq, these were things where I connected the people in the United States with these countries. The people here in the US didn't know anything about them. In fact, Iran, a lot of people have completely the wrong idea. My visit there showed me a place that was nothing like what I thought. And while the governments don't get along with each other, the people on the street would come up and say, "Oh, you're from America. We love America." They'd have all kinds of American culture, completely different than we thought. So giving presentations, writing articles and so on, it educated people about what the place was really like. And I connected the amateur astronomers together, and that led to a lot of really good things, sharing and helping and so on. So I gradually, as I was in contact with more countries, just decided, we need to make this more than just 2 or 3 countries. And you never know, but it turned out to be a big thing.
That's quite fantastic. I mean, like astronomy for diplomacy and peace. These guys really unite all of us through space and time, ancient people and us. So I think that's really quite a legacy you would have left with the formation of the Astronomers Without Borders. Now, with this, and I know you've been to remarkable and many, many countries around the world, what are some of your memorable experiences in these countries?
I always have trouble with the most or the best because there are so many remarkable things. I think Iran might have been the most unexpected. I've been there many times since. It's sort of like a second country. I love the culture, and and there are so many amazing things when you meet the people. I mean, there are places, there are things, there are historical things, but meeting the people is always what is the most remarkable. There are 2 things. One is we're so much alike. And 2 is once in a while you find something that's different, but it's rare. And that's an amazing discovery because we really are all fellow crew members on Spaceship Earth here, just in different places. So I'm trying to think, I've been to Babylon and stood within those ancient walls that were reduced. I've been to other places like that. But I don't know, every new thing seems remarkable to me. So I have trouble picking out one.
All right, but so it has been a marvelous journey of adventures after adventure. But this ability of astronomy to unite is really, really important. And I'm sure you've read that when astronauts, they look down from the space station, they say they never see any borders, that countries are really artificial, and that we are all just one humanity. And for our audience out there, I love the concept that Mike spoke about, and you would have heard him mention it. He just said that we are crew members on Spaceship Earth. All right, could you tell us how you see that?
Well, it's Buckminster Fuller who said we were all passengers on Spaceship Earth, and somebody else made it crew members because we have to take care of it. There's maintenance to be done here. And I think that's a great way to look at it. I'm also a founding member of the Overview Institute based on the Overview Effect by Frank White, who wrote a book, coined the term, about astronauts who look at the Earth from space. And I have learned that it's not just looking down on Earth, like what you have behind you here, but looking out at Earth and seeing it surrounded by stars in the context of Earth as a planet. It's not down there. It's just out there like all of the other planets, and they get this really unique perspective. And it's something that I think is essential for us in order to take care of the planet as we need to. And astronomy can give us that, because when we look up from Iraq and the US and India and Trinidad and Tobago, wherever it is, we're looking at the same sky. We're just looking out different windows of the spaceship here. And then it rotates around and we see the same thing. And that gives us a similar perspective. The sky doesn't have any borders, and we all share it together. It is our common heritage. And those stars, you know, when you're in space, you see Earth among them. It shows us our place in the universe.
And I have to confess, it almost, the emotion of it sends one back to when one would hear Carl Sagan speak.
Yeah, Sagan is still inspiring young people who were born long after his death. I meet them in every country around the world, and he still inspires them. So he's very important.
I am of the generation that was inspired by him with his series Cosmos, but I think the internet has given him another rebirth. So
Yes,
people
absolutely.
who are not in that era.
Yes.
And you are carrying on that legacy and work. So that's marvelous. Mike, I know you've been to many countries. Is there any country that you would like to go to that you have not been to?
Oh,
Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago, there's no question about it. I would love to go there. I have not been to any of the Caribbean countries. I've flown over them. They look great. But, you know, you can't name a country that I haven't been to that I wouldn't want to go to. I just love visiting the different cultures. I was hoping to visit Afghanistan because I have friends there, and the situation was never good. And now it's going to be impossible. But, you know, that there isn't any place I wouldn't want to go. But I'll put Trinidad and Tobago on the top of the list and see if I can get there.
Excellent, Mike. You have an open invitation to Trinidad and Tobago as long as our borders allow us. Wonderful. All right. You are involved in so many activities that there's so much to talk about. But I know we're involved in the 100 Hours of Astronomy project. What was that about?
Well, that was a cornerstone project, one of 10 initially in the International Year of Astronomy in 2009. And it was really the only one that engaged everybody around the world. And I co-chaired that and led the Global Star Party and other observing events. And it was really amazing because the idea was to present astronomy to the public for 4 days, which is a pretty short time to cover everything. But the Global Star Party, I think, was the highlight. And that was a 24-hour star party around the world, everybody taking part together, not different places doing it, but everybody together as darkness swept across the world. People would pick it up and bring people out. And there were, you know, amateur astronomers everywhere. In virtually every country came out to share astronomy and views through their telescopes. So the public, most of whom, of course, never looked through a telescope before. So it was really a massive event. It was one of the highlights of my life to be part of that.
That's marvelous. That's marvelous. Now, you talked about darkness descending, and I note that you are on the board for advocating for dark skies. What are some of the problems there, and what is it that you guys are looking to do?
Well, there's a lot going on there. I've been a part of the Dark Skies effort for many years. Now I'm much more involved in IDA than I was. And the issue there that most people don't realize is much more than protecting the skies for those of us who want to look at the stars. That's important because this is the first time in more than 100 years that we haven't been able to see the sky from every place. And a large proportion of the world lives in cities. They don't even know it's out there. Imagine if this was forest or something else that they don't know exists. They don't even realize it. And so it is a part of our heritage. If you think of the word star and ratings and everything else and the planet names, astronomy is a big part of our culture. And as you point out, always has been all through history. So that is important, but there's more involved because the lighting at night has not only a bad effect on wildlife in many ways, but also on people. And the blue LEDs that are now allowing countries to much more economically light their cities have a more harmful effect. They need to be changed to emitting a warmer color. So it's really kind of a crisis, part of the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, it is a very serious issue, and as you say, some things that one does not realize right away, that how just our styles of living, and in Trinidad, I can tell you, sometimes for safety reasons, you have to have lights, and therefore the light pollution.
Well, the light at night is important. Nobody's saying turn off the lights. They're just saying don't waste it. Don't put it where it isn't needed. When you're up at Griffith Observatory, which I hope you'll come to and visit because it's such a great place, or up in space, and you look down and you see the lights of the city. That's light that's being sent into space. What for? And it shines into people's windows. It keeps everything light. If you want to light something, you put the light where it's needed, and you don't send it to other places. It's wasteful, and it does harm. So it is really possible to have really good lighting, and that's a big part of what IDA does, is lighting standards and getting people to commit to appropriate lighting that does the job and doesn't do any harm.
Well, we're seeing all of this development and about the space race. Humans going to be landing on Mars within the next decade. I keep seeing all of these things. How do you feel about all of that?
Yeah, I'm actually involved in some other groups that are looking at this. And space is really, really hard. I mean, some people have said space is trying to kill us. When you go out there, you lose everything that, even the lack of gravity is really harmful. Psychologically, it's so many things. So I am kind of a doubter that it's going to be as easy as people say. Going to Mars is not like going to the moon, and that's hard enough because it's so much farther away, and it takes so long. It's a multi-year round trip. Some people are talking about going one way. And I think it's absolutely really important for people to make their way out into space. But for me, I think that the probes we have sent to so many planets have explored the solar system farther than we're going to see for a very, very long time with people directly. And it's, what, we do that already, Sharon, with our telescopes, right? We travel to these places and we wonder about them and we see them up close. To me, that's like traveling out there, and we can go even farther looking. So yeah, it's important, but it's just not going to be that easy.
Okay, because there's always so much excitement, and you hear that the first person to go to Mars has already been born. What is one of the most amazing development, in your opinion? I know you said you didn't like the superlative words that you've seen over the years in astronomy.
Well, that one's not too hard. I mean, we really are sort of in a golden age of astronomy right now. When I was younger, it was very long between the time of larger telescopes. Technology has allowed us to make bigger and bigger telescopes. Sizes undreamed of in all over the world. And that has allowed us, and the space telescopes, and that has allowed us to do some things that we thought would be impossible, such as detecting and learning about exoplanets. I think that may be the most amazing thing to me, from my perspective, growing up thinking, well, that's never going to happen. We're always wonder about those planets. Now, as we talked about earlier, the amateur astronomers can make observations of exoplanets that are part of the scientific research. And that's something that was undreamed of just a few decades ago. So I don't know. To me, that was the one that really gets me.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there because I think once upon a time I also thought it was a pipe dream. So I'm going to ask you some questions I tend to ask everyone on the wormhole. And one of it is that if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Yeah, I should have watched more Avenger movies. Um, people talk about flying and so on. The thing that I've always loved sci-fi, and the thing that I think fascinates me most in these is time travel. Not that I expect to do it, but if I had a chance to, I would travel back in time just to see what things are like. I'm a big history buff. I think you can't know where you are unless you know how you got there. And so it's really important to me. I would love to be able to just go and at least watch things happening. So how's that for a superpower?
That's a great superpower. So there's this challenge unknown to my guest this is our sixth episode of the wormhole, and no guest has ever given the same superpower. So that again, this is another unique one, time travel. Absolutely, absolutely. So picking up on your superpower of if you could time travel and have a conversation with anyone in the history of humanity, but you could only pick one person, who would you like to have a conversation with?
Okay, so now you stumped me again with having to choose one out of so many, because I read things all the time and say, "Oh, I wish I could really talk to that person."
Okay, you can do more than one, Mike. A
Well,
couple people. Make it easier.
yeah, and it's hard to think of who it would be on the spot at the moment. But I think many of the, for example, leaders, the founders of our country who are mythologized, and I would like to know them personally and see what they're really like. Abraham Lincoln is a big hero, is an important president in our history. Gosh, there are so many, Shireen. I'm stammering a little here. But I think that the main thing would be those who have contributed something unique, to be able to talk to them and find out what makes them unique. I think that's what probably really interests me. And there are a lot of people like that throughout history.
Mike, we're going to be wrapping up. In just a few words, what would be your message to the world?
I think, as I see it, what's really important, and people talk about it a lot, they say we're all in this together, talking about the pandemic or the global climate change or anything like this. And I think my message would be that we really need to find a way to understand that, rather turn it from words into a really internal feeling that each of us has, that you and I are brother and sister despite being in different countries and different places. And it's the sky that shows us this. If we could get everyone into space to look back at the Earth and experience the overview effect, maybe that would work, but it won't happen. I really do think astronomy has the power to do this. I think that connecting this way allows us to see everybody else on the planet as someone we have to care about as much as those around us. And I think that those working towards that goal, I would encourage. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of people, and a lot of time.
Okay, then I think, in my opinion, that you've actually started that mission with the formation of Astronomers Without Borders. And what a wonderful message for all of us listening in right now about humanity and humanity coming together. And it's possibly one of the most important issues right now. So, Mike, it's going to be a wrap here on the wormhole. Any last words to our audience?
No, I don't think so. You covered it well, Shireen. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I appreciate people that tune in and share it. And I will have more news coming up soon about other things. So I'll just leave it at that and let that be a surprise as well.
It has been an absolute pleasure having you as a guest, and I'm very happy that the wormhole allowed me to meet you through space and time so that we can have this wonderful conversation. So, folks, it's a wrap from me today. I am your host, Sharon Hack, signing off from none other than Studio 42, where we seek the answers to life, the universe, and everything. Bye.